didn't really know or existed, you didn't really know they're in the neighbourhood. Some of them are bad, some of them are good, some of them actually do nothing in the ecosystem but provide more food for the good ones. So if you do this approach, you'll start getting predators coming in. You have to let the life be there.
Yes.
Sterile, dead gardens are dead gardens. And a lot of people say, oh, I don't want to kill my aphids, I'm not an almighty being. The only reason you have an aphid problem is because your ecosystem's out of balance. Not everything is everywhere in the country. If you've been living in an urban environment, a lot of beneficials might not have moved there, and it won't take very much to get you across the line and start sorting out your neighbourhood. I had a lovely old lady, had a lemon tree that was riddled in aphids. She sent me photos, it was terrible. I said, okay, you only have to buy one lot of Aphidius, $16.10 delivered to you, and wait. A week later she called me again, she's like, the aphids, they're still there. I was like, calm down. They take time to do the things. It takes around about 7 to 10 days. They'll start turning brown. I sent them out on Monday, today's Monday. They only hatched on Wednesday, so you've got until next Friday before you'll start to see more things going on. On Friday she called me and she's like, oh, I need some more. Send me some more on Monday. And I was like, go out and check your tree, calm down. An hour later she calls me back, mainly because I'd gone off and done some things, so she'd been frantically trying to get hold of me, to offer me Aphidius back to help other people. She's like, every aphid is turning brown. That's fantastic. And she's like, oh, can I send you some? I was like, don't worry about it. Like, they'll hatch off, they'll sort out your neighbourhood, that's good enough. Let them be free. You don't need to send them back. I can't do too much with them. I've got to put them in a jar. But each one of these tiny little wasps will be able to lay eggs in about 300 aphids. So when you've got one tree and it seems riddled, if you put in 100 that can do 300 each, sort of, it's a few thousand aphids in the first generation alone. And then they're going to come out, all females, all useful, and deal to anything else that might be there in the neighbourhood.
So is that your smallest amount then, $16?
Yeah, that'd be the cheapest thing on my website, yeah.
I'm just, what do you call it again?
Aphidius.
Aphidius.
Aphidius, yeah.
I'm pest ignorant, so,
Yeah.
and just a tiny
You
little
may
garden.
already have them on some of the
So for example, on the bottom of the kale leaves,
Yeah.
there's thousands of little white things with thousands of eggs. Is that fly or aphids in general, would you say?
If it's on kale, it could be whitefly.
Tiny little things.
very
And they fly
tiny,
away
yeah.
if you shake it,
Yeah,
but
that's
thousands of
whitefly.
eggs. So
Yeah,
that's,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah, so that
Yeah.
you can use that one for that.
Okay.
Do you guys have a lot of problems where your introduced pests are then having to compete and having problems with all of our horrible wasp problems that are getting with the introduced wasps that are getting worse and worse in year to come?
Okay, so I'm not sure if anyone heard that question back there, but do any of our products get negatively impacted by the German and paper wasps that are wreaking havoc throughout the country? Generally not. German and paper wasps are more of, although annoying, can be beneficial in a commercial setting because they will rip apart caterpillars. But all of our products are too small for them to be really phased by, and predatory insects tend to be quite fast moving, so when they're in the presence of another predator that seems to be eyeing them up, they will go for it. They'll try and get out of there. And this is also what happens, like if someone sprays with a selective, non-selective thing such as an oil, if you were about to be torrentially rained on, you would run for shelter.
Yeah.
A big predatory mite, or as most people would say, a tiny predatory mite, does actually run quite quickly, and they're an ambush predator, they will head for places where they think they're not going to get rained on. So when you spray with something like an oil that's meant to give 100% kill, you tend to really end up with maybe a 25 to 50%, because unless you dunk the plant in the water, you probably didn't cover everywhere, and they did find a place to thrive and survive.
God looks after everything.
Yeah, so that life always finds a way.
Yeah.
So, yeah, unless you're using a synthetic pyrethroid, then no.
So how did you actually learn to reduce these wasps
So,
and predators?
How many hours do you spend looking through a microscope?
Too
Their
many.
hairy backs.
Too many. No, so we actually work quite closely with a number of insectaries around the world to share ideas. A lot of things we have to develop ourselves, but small organisations like ourselves tend to be quite helpful because our products are not easily exportable. So it's in our best interest to be friends with each other. In the northern hemisphere, there is a lot more of bugs travelling from country to country. So there are a couple of large corporations over there which dominate the northern hemisphere, and in particularly the large countries that have quite developed horticulture systems. But any of the up and coming countries, you tend to find more hospitable people. Ironically, the world's second largest biological control company we do have fairly good relations with, but I answer more of their questions than they answer of mine. So, yeah, I find it a little bit annoying, but
That'd be a nice place for that
yeah,
to work.
well, there's a lot of cooperation that happens with that. There are a lot of entomology groups and a lot more focused research going on these. Often what happens is some scientists develop a way of breeding the insect, and that's great for a laboratory study, but when you need billions, then it takes a bit more lateral thinking of how to achieve this. For an example, on those strawberry fields, we would have put out 1 million mites each time for thrips per hectare. So it was 3 million mites going out the first week of every month.
So I suppose it's cheaper the more you get.
A little bit, yes, yeah, yes. Though they are good value each. Yeah.
So how much would it be for a couple of million?
We can talk out that, but if you want 10,000, it's
Well,
only
is that the
$10.
usual 10,000?
Yeah, that's the minimum order. Yeah, but or you can buy a bag of 100,000 for $70.
Wow.
Yeah,
Well, it's a good business.
I bring the best prices to you.
Can you get stocks?
I'll
Hey, you know,
probably-
you said you sell trichoderma?
Trichoderma, yes.
Trichoderma?
Yeah.
So, well, that's an antifungal thing, so it's not a predator.
No,
It's not an insect.
correct.
So,
Yeah.
is that the only thing you have in that regard, or other sort
So
of
we have.
things for the soil?
So when you consider trichoderma, I may as well go through this because I haven't actually got any slides on it. You have lots of different species of trichoderma, and within those species you have thousands of strains in the same species. What's been done is isolating which strain is useful for what purpose. Which
Yeah, like,
is
probiotics.
good and bad, because you've got 1,000 strains that you can select, but you don't know what they do, and you assume it's nothing because you haven't found the right job for it. But any of the trichodermas you buy are either a blend of a handful of strains or a single strain. So we have a trichoderma which gets sprayed onto the plant for control of botrytis. it can help with a few other things like anthracnose, but it will not do anything for fusarium or pythium or phytophthora. But we have other trichoderma strains for those. And then we have bacteria, a blend of bacteria which can help with things like rust and yeah, like what we've found is we started with bacteria in our tomato customers. We put in bacteria every month. There's still disease, still weren't happy. Okay, there's a lot of trichoderma research coming on. Put in trichoderma, put that in every month. Okay, it's alright, it's not great. Okay, we'll put in trichoderma and we'll put in bacteria. Now we're actually starting to get to a better place. So we sort of alternated those, 1 month trichoderma, 1 month bacteria. And then some of the growers are like, you know, trying to push the boundaries. I'll do trichoderma this week and in 2 weeks I'll do bacteria and we'll get to this rate per month. Then they're like, oh, you know what, I may as well, I've got an automatic dosing system, bacteria this week, trichoderma that week. And now actually there's been almost no need for fungicides. So by developing a nice micrombe down there, rather than a single strain, we're actually starting to get some real good results.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting.
Yeah, so it's,
Because you've got all those other strains that you can experiment with as well in the future.
yeah, so,
You'd have a lot of fun.
yeah, well, what's quite annoying with trichodermas and bacteria and microbials is they're considered quite portable between countries. So research organisations like to focus their efforts on those, but they try and reinvent the wheel a lot of the time. So they'll keep trying to make a new botrytis product because they've got this strain, but this problem's already solved. Can't you work on that problem? Because we don't have an answer for that. But we're definitely getting to a much better appreciation for that, and that's where a lot of selective fungicides were used traditionally with trichoderma because they don't actually kill the trichoderma. But the trichoderma now is actually starting to become a little bit chemical resistant as well.
Oh.
So that's actually quite good in a way because then if there does need to be a little bit of a curative flush, it didn't die. So you know, it's helping out, but we're actually getting to the point where we don't really need to use fungicides in a glass house. And there's very little starting to be used outside as well. Because it's not just about killing that disease, it does actually make the plant bigger, stronger, faster, and with a better yield. And with less pathogens in the water. In a glass house, we have to recollect all of our water. We can't just dump it in a stream like they used to in the 80s and 90s. So then we can reuse that water, but the water's already got nutrients in it, which is great. We don't need to buy as many nutrients anymore. So we've actually got quite the good closed loop system going on with that. Whereas it was always considered, oh, we've got disease in the water, we need to get rid of it. We'll put it in the sea, we'll put it in the river. It'll become someone else's problem. But finally, you know, industry's on the way up and things are cleaning and getting better.
Can I ask about cost lettuce, or just lettuce in
Yes.
general,
Mhm.
grown commercially?
Yep.
What can they, how toxic are they, and what can be done to not spray them all the time?
So lettuces tend to just like get aphids, and often what's a bigger issue with them is pathogens, because they're grown in an NFT system where the water is always circulating. So once this plant has got a disease, every plant is getting a disease very quickly.